I am 32 years old, and until 3 days ago, I genuinely believed that blood meant loyalty. I thought that if you poured enough love, effort, and money into your family, eventually, they would see your worth. I thought you could earn your place at the table if you just worked hard enough to pay for the meal. I was wrong. My name is Maeve, and I am the Vice President of Operations for one of the largest logistics and event management firms in Chicago. I manage multi-million-dollar corporate accounts. I oversee hundreds of employees. But to my family, I am not a vice president. I am not even a daughter. To them, I am just an ATM machine with a pulse, a convenient wallet they can open whenever they want to fund their delusions of grandeur. The reality of my pathetic existence in this family shattered on a freezing Tuesday evening in late December. I was sitting in my living room, exhausted after a grueling 12-hour shift at the office. Outside, the snow was falling heavily over the Chicago skyline, blanketing the city in a quiet, peaceful white. Inside, the fireplace was crackling. I had just poured myself a glass of expensive red wine, hoping to finally relax. Everything felt calm. Everything felt normal. Then, my phone screen lit up on the coffee table. It was a message notification from our family group chat. I picked it up, expecting a mundane question about the menu for our annual New Year's Eve party. I assumed my mother wanted to change the appetizers again, or my sister wanted to request a different type of champagne. Instead, I read the words that would burn my entire life to the ground and leave absolutely nothing but ashes. It was a text from my father, Thaddeus. It read exactly like this: Maeve, your mother and I have been talking, and the family has made a collective decision. Sybil really needs to shine this year to impress her boss. We gave your VIP seat to your sister for the New Year's party. Honestly, it is better if you just sit this one out. We do not want your intense energy making her anxious. We will send you some pictures. I stared at the glowing screen. The letters started to blur together. My chest tightened so fast I forgot how to draw air into my lungs. My brain simply could not process the absolute cruelty of what my father had just typed. The heavy crystal wine glass slipped from my suddenly numb fingers. It hit the solid oak floor and shattered into 100 jagged pieces. Dark red liquid pooled into the expensive wood, spreading outward like a fresh bloodstain. Before I could even catch my breath, before I could even formulate a thought, the notifications started pinging in rapid succession. One by one, the little thumbs-up reaction icons popped up right beneath his devastating message. My sister, Sybil, liked it. My mother, Coraline, liked it. My uncle Silas liked it. They were all agreeing. They were actively, gleefully cheering for my exclusion. The pain was so sharp and so intense it felt purely physical. It felt like someone had taken a hot knife and twisted it right between my ribs, carving out my heart while looking me dead in the eye. Here's the thing you desperately need to know about this specific New Year's Eve party. I did not just suggest this event. I did not just offer to help. I built it from the ground up. 3 months ago, way back in October, I spent $8,500 of my own hard-earned money to book a luxury rooftop venue in downtown Chicago. I secured a premium catering service that required a massive non-refundable deposit. I arranged a live jazz band because my father loves jazz. I meticulously planned every single detail so my family could feel like royalty for one single night. I paid every invoice. I signed every corporate contract. I specially ordered the vintage champagne my mother drinks and the expensive gluten-free hors d'oeuvres my father constantly demands. And now, exactly 3 days before the biggest event of the year, they were kicking me out of my own party just to give my seat to Sybil. My boyfriend, Cashin, rushed out of the kitchen when he heard the glass break. He is 35 years old, a forensic accountant who spends his days tracking down corporate financial fraud. He is usually the calmest, most rational person in any room. But when he rushed in and saw the look of absolute devastation on my face, his eyes went wide with panic. Maeve? Hey, look at me. What is wrong? Are you hurt? He asked, his voice filled with frantic worry as he carefully stepped over the broken glass to reach me on the couch. I could not speak. My throat was completely closed up. I just numbly handed him the phone. I sat there in silence and watched his eyes dart back and forth across the screen as he read the message. I watched him see the trail of thumbs-up reactions. His jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth would crack. The thick vein in his neck pulsed with sudden, violent anger. Cashin has watched my family treat me like garbage for 2 entire years. He has warned me about their behavior. But this? This was a new level of family drama and humiliation, even for them. "They are kicking you out of the luxury event you paid for," he whispered, his voice dangerously low, practically vibrating with rage. "They want to take your VIP table, eat the expensive food you bought, and they want you to stay home so Sybil does not feel anxious." Are you kidding me? I nodded slowly, hot tears finally spilling over my eyelashes and streaming down my cold cheeks. "Maeve," Cashin said firmly, gripping my trembling shoulders to ground me. "This is not family. This is theft. This is emotional and financial abuse. They're stealing your life, your resources, and your dignity." He was absolutely right. They thought they could just push me out the door and keep the party. They thought I would just sit in my apartment, cry into my pillow, and let them enjoy the luxury I provided. Because that is what I had always done. I had always been the invisible daughter, the family scapegoat, the one who absorbed the blows and the mockery just to keep the peace. But as I looked down at the broken glass and the spilled wine ruining my floor, something deep inside me finally snapped. The sad, desperate little girl who just wanted her parents to love her finally died in that exact moment. In her place, a very cold, very rational corporate executive woke up. They thought getting rid of me was the final step in their perfect plan of family revenge and entitlement. But they forgot one tiny, crucial detail. The most powerful credit card in that room belonged to me. The contracts had my legal signature on them. The vendors answered to my company. I wiped my eyes, picked up my phone with a steady hand, and typed my response. But to understand how a family gets this unbelievably toxic, you have to understand the sick dynamic I was raised in. If you walked through the museum of my family history, every single exhibit, every memory, and every photograph would tell the exact same depressing story. Sybil is the bright, shining sun, and I am just the dirt she walks on. Sybil is 27 years old. She works as a junior event coordinator at a tiny, run-down community center in the suburbs. It is a dead-end job that barely pays above minimum wage. But the way my parents talk about her, the way they worship her every move, you would think she was single-handedly organizing the global Olympics. Me? I clawed my way up the corporate ladder with blood, sweat, and tears. I worked 80-hour weeks for years. I sacrificed holidays, romantic relationships, and my own mental health to become a vice president by the time I was 30. But in the Richardson household, my massive success is never celebrated. It is viewed merely as a duty, a convenient financial tool meant to fund Sybil's endless fantasies. Let me take you back to Thanksgiving. Just a little over a month ago, I had foolishly offered to host the family dinner at my apartment. I spent 14 agonizing hours in my kitchen. I roasted a massive, organic turkey, carefully basting it every 30 minutes. I baked 3 different types of pies completely from scratch. I prepared a holiday spread that looked like it belonged on the cover of a high-end lifestyle magazine. I wanted everything to be absolutely flawless. I wanted, just for one single day, for my mother to look at me, smile, and say she was proud of the woman I had become. The guests arrived. The dining table was beautifully set with fine china and expensive silver. Then, Sybil walked through the door. She was a full hour late, unapologetic, carrying a cheap foil pan holding a store-bought rotisserie chicken that she had somehow managed to burn to a crisp while reheating it in her microwave. My mother, Coraline, gasped loudly, acting like Sybil had just cured a major global disease. "Oh, Sybil. Honey, you cooked. Everyone, come look at what our amazing Sybil made." Coraline literally walked over to the table, took my beautiful, hand-carved, perfectly roasted turkey, moved it to the far end of the dusty sideboard, and placed Sybil's burnt, dry, pathetic chicken directly in the center of the main dining table. When it was time to sit down, my father directed me to sit at a small, wobbly folding table in the corner of the room. "Sybil needs the good chair with the back support for her posture," Thaddeus said dismissively. She works so hard on her feet at the community center. You sit over there, Maeve. I ate my Thanksgiving dinner staring at the living room wall, listening to my entire family rave about the dry, blackened chicken while completely ignoring the massive feast I had spent 2 agonizing days preparing. Then, there was the promotion incident. Back in August, I finally landed the vice president title I had been fighting for. It came with a massive salary bump to $180,000 a year, plus stock options. It was the proudest, most validating moment of my entire professional life. I called my parents immediately, sitting in my glass office, crying happy tears. Thaddeus answered the phone on the second ring. Hello, Dad. I got it. I am the new vice president of operations. I practically screamed into the receiver, waiting for the cheers. There was a long, awkward pause on the other end of the line. Oh, that is nice, Maeve. Listen, we are a bit busy right now. Sybil just hit 500 followers on her Instagram page, and we are taking her out for a big celebratory steak dinner. Your mother is currently in the car buying helium balloons. Can we call you back tomorrow? Click. The line went dead. They threw a literal party with balloons, cake, and premium steaks because my 27-year-old sister managed to get 500 strangers to look at her heavily filtered selfies online. My life-changing promotion? It was never mentioned again. Not once. Unless, of course, they needed to borrow money. The most infuriating artifact in this museum of pain, however, was the designer coat. Last winter, after a particularly grueling quarter at work, I treated myself to a designer winter coat. It cost $2,000. I saved up my bonuses for months to buy it. It was a gorgeous, tailored cashmere piece that made me feel powerful and invincible every time I put it on. I wore it to a casual family Sunday dinner at my parents' house. I hung it carefully in the hallway closet near the front door. When it was time to leave and drive back to the city, I opened the closet. The coat was gone. I searched the entire house frantically. Finally, my mother casually walked out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel, looking completely unbothered. Oh, are you looking for that black jacket? Sybil took it. She had a first date with that new guy from her gym, and she really needed to look expensive and put together. You understand. She took my $2,000 coat without asking me? I demanded, my voice trembling with raw rage and disbelief. My mother rolled her eyes, letting out a loud, dramatic sigh of annoyance. Do not be so materialistic and selfish, Maeve. It is just a piece of fabric. You make so much money now, you can just go buy another one tomorrow. Sybil does not have your financial advantages. You should be happy to help your little sister look good. Sybil returned the coat a full week later. She did not hand it to me. She threw it in a crumpled, careless ball on my front porch. It smelled heavily of cheap vanilla perfume and stale cigarette smoke. Worse, there was a massive, irreparable tear straight down the delicate silk lining of the right sleeve. When I confronted her about the damage, she simply shrugged her shoulders, scrolling on her phone. It snagged on a car door, Sybil said flatly. Honestly, the quality is terrible for how much you paid. You got ripped off, Maeve. There was no apology. There was no offer to pay for the dry cleaning or the repairs. Just raw, unadulterated entitlement and disrespect. For years, I swallowed these daily indignities. I told myself that this is just how families are. I told myself that if I was generous enough, patient enough, and successful enough, the dynamic would eventually shift. I bought the expensive gifts. I hosted the lavish dinners. I loaned the thousands of dollars that were never, ever repaid. I became a human shield for their insecurities and a bank for their desires. Have you ever had to shrink yourself down to make a toxic family member feel bigger? Have you ever bitten your tongue so hard it bled just to keep the peace at a holiday dinner while they mocked you? Let me know in the comments below. Because right now, I am going to show you exactly how this family managed to secretly drain me dry behind my back. The stark contrast between my professional life and my personal life was a bitter, exhausting irony. During the day, I managed massive corporate budgets. I directed teams of professionals across 3 different states. When I spoke in a boardroom, older men in expensive suits stopped talking and took notes. But the exact second I stepped into my parents' house, all of that respect vanished. I was instantly reduced to the family workhorse, the designated ATM. The true, horrifying depth of their financial exploitation did not fully click into place until Cashin stepped in. It was a quiet Sunday morning, about a month before the infamous New Year's text message. I was sitting at my kitchen island, surrounded by a chaotic, messy pile of bank statements, credit card bills, and medical fund reports. I was incredibly stressed, trying to figure out why my savings accounts were growing so slowly despite my massive salary increase. I had my head buried in my hands, aggressively rubbing my pounding temples. Cashin walked into the kitchen carrying 2 hot mugs of coffee. Being a forensic accountant, complex numbers are his native language. He literally thrives on finding the hidden stories hidden deep within a spreadsheet. He set the coffee mugs down on the granite and glanced at the overwhelming amount of paperwork scattered across the counter. "Everything okay in here?" he asked, taking a slow sip of his black coffee, his eyes scanning the documents. I feel like I am constantly leaking money," I confessed, feeling a deep wave of shame and embarrassment. "I make really good money, Cashin, but every single month it feels like there is absolutely nothing left over. I am trying to finalize the budget for the big New Year's party for my family, but my accounts are stretched unbelievably thin." Cashin frowned, his professional instincts kicking in. He pulled up a tall stool, sat down next to me, and gently moved my hands away from my tired face. "Do you want me to take a look at this mess? I promise I will not judge your spending habits. I do this for a living, remember? Let me help you find the leak." I hesitated. I was embarrassed by my lack of financial control, but the sheer exhaustion won. I nodded silently and pushed the massive stack of papers toward him. Cashin walked to his home office and came back armed with a red pen, a legal pad, and his heavy-duty calculator. He sat next to me and began meticulously flipping through the pages. For the first 10 long minutes, the kitchen was dead silent, save for the scratching of his red pen and the rapid tapping of the calculator keys. Then his entire posture changed. His back stiffened. His brow furrowed so deeply it created a permanent crease between his eyes. The casual boyfriend vanished, replaced entirely by the forensic auditor. "Maeve," he said, his voice flat, professional, and completely devoid of its usual warmth. "What exactly is this massive charge on your primary Visa card?" $3,200 to a place called Sunshine Auto Repair. I blinked in confusion. Auto repair? I drive a leased Audi. The corporate dealership handles all my maintenance for free. Let me see that statement. I leaned over and looked at the paper. The charge was dated back in September. I racked my brain. Then, a sickening, awful memory hit me. In September, Sybil had supposedly totaled her old Honda. My father had called me late at night, sounding absolutely frantic, saying they needed emergency financial help to fix a broken transmission so Sybil wouldn't lose her job. He begged for my credit card number just to keep on file at the shop as a guarantee. I gave it to him immediately, assuming it was a few $100 for a minor fix. "They told me it was a minor, cheap repair," I whispered, feeling the blood drain from my face. Cashin did not say a word. His red pen simply moved down the page, circling another item. "Okay, what about these recurring monthly charges? $400 every single month to an exclusive boutique fitness and Pilates studio in downtown Chicago. You have a free, state-of-the-art gym in your apartment building, Maeve." My stomach dropped to the floor. Sybil had been loudly bragging on her Instagram account about her exclusive Pilates membership for the last 6 months, claiming she got a scholarship. The scratching of the red pen grew faster, louder, more aggressive. Cashin was now pulling up my digital credit records on his iPad, cross-referencing my bank accounts with my long-term credit files. He was moving with the intense speed and precision of a man dismantling a live bomb. "Here is a premium grocery delivery service. $200 a week, every week, delivered straight to your parents' address. Here is a massive charge for a luxury spa resort in Michigan, charged to your American Express back in October. That was $1,000. I felt physically sick. I had to grip the cold edge of the granite counter just to keep the room from spinning out of control. They were not asking for occasional help. They were quietly, systematically siphoning my income to fund a lavish lifestyle they could not afford. My mother's relaxing spa weekend. My sister's expensive fitness classes. My parents' premium organic groceries. Cashin flipped to the last page of a comprehensive credit report he had just pulled from the secure server. Suddenly, all the color drained from his face. He stopped writing entirely. He slowly, deliberately put the red pen down on the counter. The silence in the kitchen was suddenly suffocating and terrifying. "Maeve," he said, and his voice was actually shaking. He looked at me, his dark eyes full of a chaotic mixture of deep pity and intense, violent anger. "Have you ever, in your entire life, co-signed or guaranteed a high-risk commercial business loan for $30,000? My heart completely stopped beating in my chest. "What? No. Never. Why would I do that?" He turned the iPad screen toward me, pointing a shaking finger at a massive red flag on my credit history. "Because someone illegally used your social security number to secure a high-risk commercial loan back in August. And right now, that $30,000 loan is severely delinquent." The air left my lungs in a violent, desperate rush. $30,000. A commercial business loan. Someone had stolen my identity. Someone had committed a major federal felony using my name. Who? I choked out, staring blindly at the glowing screen, my vision swimming with unshed tears of pure panic. "Who holds the loan, Cashin? Who did this to me?" He tapped the screen, expanding the detailed financial records. "The business applicant is officially listed as Silas Landscaping and Design. The primary financial guarantor is listed as Maeve Richardson. Uncle Silas. My father's older brother. The man who sat at my Thanksgiving table, drank my expensive wine, and loudly complained that the turkey was too dry. He owned a failing, pathetic landscaping business that had been heavily bleeding money for a decade. He was a slippery, arrogant, loudmouthed man who always had an excuse for why he was dead broke and always had a shady scheme to get rich quick. I grabbed the iPad, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped the expensive device onto the floor. He stole my social security number. How is that even possible? How did he even get it? Think hard, Maeve. Did you ever give your parents your sensitive tax documents? Or let them hold onto old mail when you moved? Cashin asked gently, though his jaw remained tightly clenched. I felt a freezing cold wave of realization wash over my entire body. 2 years ago, when I moved from my old place into this new luxury apartment, I left a heavy cardboard box of old financial files and tax returns in my parents' basement for safekeeping. I trusted them completely. They were my parents. I thought my personal information was safe in the home I grew up in. "Yes," I whispered, the sickening truth settling heavy in my gut. "I left my tax returns in their basement." Cashin stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. He pulled out a fresh, blank legal notepad. "Okay, we are doing a full, comprehensive forensic sweep of your entire financial life. Right now. Give me all your logins." For the next 4 agonizing hours, we turned my beautiful kitchen into a chaotic war room. We pulled every single bank statement, every credit card receipt, every tax document, and every medical bill from the last 5 years. What we slowly uncovered was not just a few isolated instances of taking advantage of a wealthy relative. It was a massive, calculated, terrifying avalanche of financial abuse. It was infinitely worse than the sneaky car repair. It was worse than the stolen Pilates classes. We logged into my health savings account, a specific, tax-advantaged fund I had been aggressively contributing to for years to cover future medical emergencies. I clicked on the transaction history. There was a massive, glaring withdrawal from February of this year. $15,000. Gone. I stared at the screen, my mind going completely blank, unable to comprehend the numbers. I did not authorize this. You cannot just withdraw HSA funds without a massive IRS tax penalty unless someone explicitly claims it is for a qualified dependent or a major medical emergency, and they have the exact login credentials, Cashin finished grimly, typing furiously on his laptop. I remembered giving my mother my master passwords years ago when I was hospitalized with severe pneumonia, just in case She needed to handle my medical bills while I was incapacitated. She promised she deleted the note. She lied. What on earth did she buy for $15,000? I asked, though a terrible, sinking feeling in my stomach told me I already knew the answer. In February, Sybil had miraculously acquired a brand new, imported compact SUV. She told me she negotiated an amazing, low-cost lease deal all by herself. She lied straight to my face. My parents had illegally raided my emergency health funds, swallowed the massive IRS tax penalty that would eventually fall squarely on my shoulders, and bought my sister a car in straight cash. Cashin tallied the final, devastating numbers on a large whiteboard he had dragged out of his home office. He drew a heavy, thick black line under the final sum. The boutique gym memberships. The premium grocery deliveries. The unauthorized luxury spa trips. The fake car repairs. The stolen medical funds for the SUV. The fraudulent commercial loan stolen by Uncle Silas. The final total number staring back at me in thick red marker was $53,500. $53,500. Stolen from me by the very people who raised me. The people who called me family. The people who were currently expecting me to blindly pay $8,500 for a luxury New Year's Eve party where I would be forced to sit in the corner and watch Sybil shine. I collapsed onto the kitchen stool, burying my face in my arms, my whole body trembling. I did not cry. I was too far past crying. I felt completely hollowed out, like someone had taken a melon baller to my insides and scraped out every ounce of love and trust one had left. Cashin stood behind me, resting his warm, heavy hands on my shaking shoulders. This is a serious federal crime, Maeve. Silas committed wire fraud and identity theft. Your parents committed grand theft and embezzlement. If you want, I will help you file the police reports and contact the FBI right now. I cannot send my own parents to federal prison, I whispered to the dark granite counter, the ingrained guilt of a lifetime still holding me back. They did not seem to mind sending you to the poorhouse, he replied softly, his voice echoing with devastating truth. He was right, but I needed more proof of their actual intent. I needed to know if they were just desperate and incredibly stupid, or if this was a malicious, coordinated effort to ruin me. I got my horrific answer a week later, during a mandatory family Christmas visit. I drove to my parents' house in the suburbs for a pre-Christmas dinner, forcing myself to keep my knowledge of the $53,000 a complete secret. Cashin stayed home. He bluntly stated that he could not look at my parents without wanting to break furniture. I had to go alone. I had to play the part of the oblivious, dependable, ATM daughter one last time. The atmosphere in the house was sickeningly festive and fake. The giant Christmas tree was perfectly decorated. Holiday music was playing softly from the expensive speakers I had bought them last year. Sybil was lounging lazily on the living room sofa in her expensive activewear that I had unknowingly paid for, sipping hot cocoa and loudly complaining about how stressed she was about picking the perfect outfit for the upcoming New Year's Eve party. It just has to be absolutely perfect, Sybil whined, tossing her hair. My boss is going to be there, and I need him to see that I have high-class connections and a wealthy lifestyle. Maeve, did you make sure the jazz band knows to play my favorite song when I walk into the room? I will handle the band, I said evenly, keeping my face a completely blank mask, suppressing the urge to scream. My mother, Coraline, was bustling around in the kitchen, struggling with a digital recipe on her iPad. Maeve, be a dear and fix this stupid screen for me. It keeps freezing up, she called out impatiently. I walked into the warm kitchen. My mother handed me her unlocked iPad and immediately turned around to continue chopping vegetables, not even looking at me. I closed out of her recipe app to clear the RAM cache. As the home screen appeared, a banner notification dropped down from the top of the screen. It was a message from iMessage. The group chat name was Sybil's Support Squad. The message was from Aunt Rowena, my father's sister. She was a bitter, highly gossipy woman who always hovered around my parents like a vulture waiting for scraps. The message read, "Just tell Maeve to pay for the upgraded champagne. If you pretend to cry, that stupid girl will open her wallet instantly. She is so desperate for your approval." My blood ran ice cold in my veins. I quickly glanced at my mother. Her back was still completely turned to me. My hands moving with frantic, terrified speed, I opened the Messages app. I clicked directly on the group chat. There were exactly 5 members: Thaddeus, Coraline, Sybil, Uncle Silas, and Aunt Rowena. I scrolled up. The chat history went back for 3 entire years. 3 years of daily messages. I stood there, frozen, the bright glow of the screen illuminating my pale face in the dim kitchen, and I read the true, unfiltered thoughts of my family. From Sybil, October, ugh, Maeve is being so annoying about this Thanksgiving menu. Does she really think anyone cares about her stupid cooking? She just wants to show off her massive salary and make me look bad. From Coraline, do not worry about the car, sweetie. Thaddeus figured out a brilliant way to transfer the money from Maeve's account. She never checks that health fund anyway. She owes us for putting a roof over her head all those years. It is basically our money. From Uncle Silas, August, the exact month he stole my identity for the loan, got the commercial loan approved today. The bank loved Maeve's perfect credit score. Do not tell her. She will just throw a massive fit and make it all about herself like she always does. But the absolute worst messages were the ones discussing the upcoming New Year's Eve party. From Sybil, I really want the center table. The VIP one next to the band. But Maeve said she is sitting there with Cashin because she paid for it. From Thaddeus, do not worry, pumpkin. We will figure out a way to move her. She is just the wallet. You are the star of the night. We will just tell her it is for your career. From Aunt Rowena, honestly, why does Maeve even need to be there at all? She is so boring and stiff. Her energy ruins every party. Just take her credit card and tell her to stay home. They were not just using me. They actively despised me. They viewed my existence as a mere transaction. I was a locked bank vault they had to trick into opening, and once the cash was out, they found my actual presence repulsive. I did not scream. I did not throw the expensive iPad across the room. I felt a terrifying, icy, sociopathic calm settle over my brain. I took my iPhone out of my pocket. I quickly took high-resolution, clear photos of every single incriminating message. I photographed the shocking admission of stealing the medical funds. I photographed Silas blatantly admitting to the federal loan fraud. I photographed their cruel plans to exploit me for the party. I emailed the photos directly to a highly secure, encrypted folder Cashin had set up for me. Then, I closed the app, reopened the recipe, and handed the iPad back to my mother. Fixed it, I said, my voice eerily steady. Coraline smiled without looking at me. Thanks, dear. You are always so helpful. I walked out of that house 20 minutes later. I sat in my car in the snowy driveway, gripping the leather steering wheel until my knuckles turned pure white. I looked at the warmly lit windows of my childhood home. Inside, they were laughing, drinking hot cocoa, and actively planning how to bleed me dry for Sybil's big night. They had made their choices. Now, I was going to make mine. For days before New Year's Eve. The trap was fully set, but I needed to give them one last, final chance. One final test to see if there was even a shred of decency or humanity left in them. I initiated a group text, the regular family group chat, the one I was actually allowed to be in. Hey everyone, I typed, forcing my fingers to remain steady. The final bills for the NY party are due today. The total is $8,500. Since I have been covering a lot of heavy family expenses recently, I need everyone to pitch in this year. Can we split the cost evenly among the working adults? I sat my phone face up on my desk and watched it. It took exactly 3 minutes for the explosion to occur. My phone rang loudly. It was Sybil. I answered and immediately put her on speakerphone so Cashin could hear. Are you absolutely insane? Sybil shrieked through the speaker, her voice shrill with panic. You want me to pay for a luxury party? I am junior staff. You are a vice president. You know I cannot afford that. You are just doing this to ruin my night because you are jealous of me. I am asking for an equal financial contribution, Sybil, I said calmly, betraying no emotion. Before Sybil could respond, my mother's voice chimed in loudly in the background. She must have been on speaker too. Maeve, this is incredibly selfish and cruel of you. You know your sister is stressed about her boss coming. You promised to handle this. Why are you attacking us out of nowhere? I am not attacking anyone, Mom. I am asking for financial fairness. Fairness, my father yelled, violently taking the phone from Coraline. We are family. We do not keep score. You make more money than all of us combined, and you are acting like a greedy, pathetic miser over a stupid party. Fix this, Maeve. Pay the vendors right now and stop causing drama. He hung up on me. They failed the test. Spectacularly. They demanded the luxury. They demanded the prestige. But they flatly refused to take an ounce of responsibility. The very next day, exactly 3 days before New Year's Eve, is when they dropped the final bomb. They realized I was pushing back, so they decided to punish me. They decided to firmly put me in my place. That brings us back to the horrible text message that started this whole story. Maeve, your mother and I have been talking. We gave your VIP seat to your sister. Honestly, it is better if you just sit this one out. When I sent my short reply, perfect. Enjoy paying the bills then. I immediately turned my phone on airplane mode. I did not sit on the couch and cry. I walked straight into my home office, where Cashin was already sitting at his computer, waiting for my signal. Did they do it? He asked, looking up from his dual monitors. They kicked me out, I said, a slow, dangerous, terrifying smile creeping onto my face. They want the party without me. Cashin smiled back. It was the smile of a shark smelling fresh blood in the water. All right, let's go to work. The very first call I made was not to a vendor. It was to Evander. Evander is a senior litigation attorney at one of the most ruthless, expensive law firms in Chicago. He is highly aggressive, and he absolutely does not lose. I had officially retained him 2 days ago after Cashin finished compiling the devastating financial report. Evander, I said when he answered on the first ring. It is Maeve. They crossed the line. Pull the trigger on Silas. With pleasure, Maeve, Evander replied smoothly. The wire fraud and identity theft complaints will be officially filed with the federal authorities and the local Chicago Police Department within the hour. We are also filing the civil suit for massive financial damages. He is going to have a very, very rough morning. What about my parents? I asked. The embezzlement of the health funds is perfectly documented thanks to your photos. We are sending a formal legal demand letter via certified mail tomorrow morning. If they do not repay the $15,000 within 14 days, we pursue criminal felony charges for grand theft. I have the drafts ready to go. Send them, I commanded. I hung up the phone. Step 1 was complete. Complete legal destruction. But legal destruction takes time, and I wanted immediate, devastating karma. I wanted them to feel the exact public humiliation they had tried to inflict on me. I picked up my phone again. It was time to deal with the New Year's Eve party. Here is the beautiful, ironic twist that my family was entirely too stupid to realize. The beautiful rooftop venue they loved so much? The premium catering company serving the expensive food? The jazz band they wanted? They are all direct corporate subsidiaries of the massive logistics and event management corporation where I work as the vice president of operations. I do not just book these vendors like a normal customer. I own their corporate contracts. I control their schedules. I am literally their boss. My family thought they had successfully hijacked an $8,500 luxury event. They thought they had secured their perfect night to show off to Sybil's boss, leaving me crying in the dust. They thought the deposits were locked in and the event was guaranteed. They were about to learn a very hard, very public lesson about how corporate contracts work when the person who signed them is the VP of the company. I opened my laptop. I pulled up the master corporate event schedule for December 31st. I found the reservation under the name Richardson Family NY Gala. I hovered my mouse over the bright red button labeled Cancel Event. I paused for just a second, thinking about the 14 hours I spent cooking Thanksgiving dinner just to eat alone. I thought about my stolen designer coat. I thought about the $15,000 drained from my medical fund. I thought about the group chat where they laughed at me, called me a wallet, and plotted to exclude me. My finger clicked the mouse. Are you sure you want to cancel this event? The screen prompted. Yes. Event canceled. All vendor dispatches revoked. Retainers were funded to original payment method. I leaned back in my chair and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 32 years. The massive amount of money was routing back to my account. The venue was instantly released back to the public. The caterers were notified to stand down. My family currently believed they were hosting the social event of the season in 3 days. They had invited high-profile guests. Sybil had invited her boss. They were bragging online about the VIP tables and the premium champagne. They had absolutely no idea that they were walking into a completely empty, pitch-black room. I closed my laptop. The gun was loaded, the safety was off, and I had just pulled the trigger. All that was left to do was sit back, drink my wine, and watch the explosion. Thank you for watching this far. If you support my decision, please leave a comment with the words, "I'm win." This is our secret code to prove you're a true audience member who's listened to the most exciting part. I will like and reply directly to any comment containing the keyword, "I'm win." Get ready for the next act, when this bomb officially explodes. The immediate aftermath of clicking that red cancel button was not fear. It was not regret. It was a profound, overwhelming sense of liberation. For 32 years, I had been carrying a boulder up a mountain, terrified of what would happen if I let it go. Now, I had finally stepped aside and let gravity do its job. But canceling the venue and the caterers was only the first half of my logistical revenge. There was still the matter of the premium alcohol, the custom decorations, and the specialty food items that I had personally ordered and paid for weeks in advance. These were items being stored at a secure lockup facility downtown, waiting to be transported to the venue on the morning of New Year's Eve. My family assumed all of this was just magically going to appear at their stolen party. They assumed the vintage champagne my mother demanded would simply be poured into her glass. They assumed the custom-ordered, gluten-free hors d'oeuvres would be passed around on silver trays. I picked up my phone and called the storage facility manager, a kind older man named Marcus whom I had worked with for years. "Marcus, it is Maeve," I said, my voice steady and professional. "I need to redirect the delivery for the Richardson event on the 31st. We are no longer taking those items to the rooftop venue." "Sure thing, Maeve," Marcus replied, typing on his keyboard. "Where are we sending the inventory?" I looked across my home office at Cashin. He gave me an encouraging nod. "I need you to load the $5,000 worth of champagne, premium wine, and all the non-perishable custom food items onto a secure truck. We are sending it to the downtown women's shelter. They are hosting a charity gala on New Year's Eve for survivors of domestic and financial abuse. I am donating the entire inventory to their event." Marcus paused for a second, then his voice softened. "That is a beautiful gesture, Maeve. Consider the delivery fee waived. I will have the crew load it up and deliver it directly to their event coordinator tomorrow morning." I hung up the phone and closed my eyes. $5,000. That was how much extra I had spent just to make sure Sybil and my parents had the very best. Now, instead of being poured down the throats of ungrateful people who mocked me behind my back, that luxury was going to women who had lost everything. Women who were rebuilding their lives from scratch. Women who actually understood what it meant to survive financial abuse. That night, Cashin and I ordered takeout from our favorite Thai place. We sat on the floor of my living room, eating out of paper cartons, drinking cheap beer, and laughing. For the first time in months, my chest did not feel tight. I was not agonizing over seating charts. I was not worried about whether Sybil would throw a tantrum because her dress clashed with the napkins. I was free. The next morning was December 30th, one day before the party. At my parents' house, I knew the excitement was reaching a fever pitch. Sybil was probably getting a spray tan. Coraline was likely getting her hair professionally styled. Thaddeus was probably bragging to his golf buddies about the VIP rooftop event his daughters were hosting. They were living in a beautiful, fragile bubble of delusion. It was time to pop the bubble. I have never been the kind of person to air my dirty laundry on the internet. I keep my social media professional and clean. Mostly, I post updates about my company, photos of my dog, or occasional vacation pictures with Cashin. I had built a solid, respectable network of over 3,000 connections on LinkedIn, and my Facebook was full of extended family, high school friends, and industry colleagues. At exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon on December 30th, I sat at my dining table. Cashin handed me a flash drive containing the organized files. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his voice low and serious. "Once this goes live, there is no taking it back. Your family will never forgive you." "They do not have to forgive me," I replied, staring at the screen, "because I am never going to speak to them again." I opened Facebook and LinkedIn simultaneously. I did not want to write an emotional, dramatic rant. I wanted to deliver cold, hard, undeniable facts. I attached a carefully redacted version of Cashin's financial spreadsheet, clearly outlining the $53,500 that had been systematically drained from my accounts. I attached the crystal-clear screenshots from the Sybil Support Squad group chat, highlighting their cruel remarks and their blatant admission of stealing my medical funds. Finally, I attached a heavily blurred photo of the legal demand letter Evander had sent to Uncle Silas for federal wire fraud. Then I typed my message. "For 32 years, I believed that family was supposed to support you. Yesterday, I learned that my family views me solely as a financial resource to be exploited. After discovering that my parents and uncle stole over $53,000 from my savings, medical funds, and personal credit to fund their lavish lifestyles, they informed me that I was uninvited from the New Year's Eve party I personally funded. They wanted my money, but they did not want my presence. I have decided to give them exactly what they asked for. I have canceled the event, revoked the vendors, and donated the $5,000 worth of food and wine to a local women's shelter. To anyone reading this who is currently setting yourself on fire to keep toxic family members warm, stop. You owe them nothing." I took a deep breath, hovering my mouse over the post button. My heart hammered against my ribs. I clicked send on both platforms. The response was not just immediate. It was explosive. Within the first hour, my phone started vibrating so constantly it felt like it was going to melt. Notifications flooded my screen in a relentless wave. Colleagues, old friends, distant relatives, everyone was seeing the post. The sheer volume of evidence I provided made it impossible for anyone to deny the truth. My Aunt Rowena, the very same woman who had told my parents to make me cry so I would open my wallet, was the first to panic. Instead of calling me privately, she made a catastrophic, arrogant mistake. Thinking she could control the narrative and rally our extended family against me, she went live on her Facebook page. Cashin and I watched her live stream from my iPad, utterly fascinated by her stupidity. Rowena sat in her living room, her face red and blotchy, screaming into her phone camera. "My niece Maeve has lost her mind. She is posting fake spreadsheets online to ruin her hardworking parents. She is a selfish, ungrateful brat who makes a fortune and refuses to help her own flesh and blood." The comments on her live stream were brutal. People were already reading my post and coming to her page. They were asking about the group chat screenshots. They were asking about the stolen medical funds. Cornered and panicking, Rowena started rambling. Those medical funds were family money. Thaddeus needed to buy Sybil a reliable car for her safety. Maeve wasn't even using that health savings account. It was just sitting there. Taking $15,000 for a car is not stealing when it is for your own sister's safety. Cashin burst out laughing, clapping a hand over his mouth. Did she really just confess to felony embezzlement on a public livestream? She really did, I whispered, shaking my head in disbelief. Someone screen-recorded Rowena's entire rant, specifically the part where she loudly admitted that Thaddeus took the $15,000 for Sybil's car. Within hours, that video snippet was circulating through our entire extended family and local community. By 6 o'clock in the evening, the post had gone viral beyond my immediate circle. It caught the attention of a prominent investigative journalist in Chicago named Isolde. She wrote for a major city magazine that frequently covered corporate ethics and high society scandals. Isolde sent me a direct message on LinkedIn. "Maeve, your story is a textbook, terrifying example of familial financial abuse. The fact that they stole your identity for a commercial loan is a federal issue. I am writing a feature on financial exploitation. Would you be willing to give me an exclusive interview? I want to publish this." I showed the message to Cashin. We both knew what this meant. This was no longer just family drama. This was public accountability on a massive scale. "Tell her yes," Cashin said, his eyes gleaming. "Tell her Evander will provide the redacted legal filings for the article." As I typed my reply to Isolde, my phone finally started ringing with calls from my parents. Thaddeus called 6 times. Coraline called 4 times. Sybil sent a barrage of frantic text messages demanding I take the post down immediately because her boss had seen it. I did not answer a single call. I poured myself a glass of water, went to bed early, and slept more peacefully than I had in a decade. December 31st. New Year's Eve. The morning was surprisingly quiet, but I knew the storm was brewing downtown. I had scheduled the vendor cancellation notices to take physical effect at exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, for hours before the guests were scheduled to arrive at the rooftop venue. At 2:15, my phone screen lit up with a call from Sybil. I let it ring. Then Thaddeus called. Then Coraline. I decided to answer Thaddeus's third call. I put it on speakerphone and set it on the kitchen counter. "Maeve." Thaddeus roared, his voice echoing off my kitchen walls. The background noise was chaotic. I could hear Sybil openly sobbing and people shouting. "What the hell did you do? The rental company is here. They are taking the tables away. The catering manager just packed up the kitchen and told us our contract was revoked. Fix this right now." I leaned against the counter, inspecting my fingernails. "Fix what, Dad? I thought you said you were handling the party. You gave my VIP seat to Sybil, remember? You canceled the vendors?" he screamed, his voice cracking with panic. "Sybil's boss is going to be here in 3 hours. Our friends are coming. We have no food, no chairs, and no band. You are humiliating us." "No, Thaddeus," I corrected him, dropping the title of Dad. "You humiliated yourselves. I am not paying for a luxury event that I am banned from attending. Furthermore, Evander's demand letter for the $15,000 you stole should be arriving in your mailbox today. I suggest you focus on finding a criminal defense attorney instead of worrying about a jazz band. Happy New Year." I ended the call and blocked his number. I blocked Coraline. I blocked Sybil. I blocked Silas and Rowena. The silence that followed was golden. That evening, Cashin and I dressed in formal wear. He wore a sharp tuxedo, and I wore a stunning, emerald green evening gown. We did not sit at home. We attended the Downtown Women's Shelter Charity Gala. When we walked into the grand ballroom, the event coordinator rushed over to us, tears in her eyes. She hugged me tightly. "Maeve, your donations saved our event. The champagne, the food, our guests have never experienced anything like this. Thank you." I looked around the room. Women who had escaped terrible, abusive situations were laughing, dancing, and enjoying the premium food I had originally bought for my ungrateful family. My heart swelled with genuine joy. This was where my hard work belonged. This was a VIP seat that actually mattered. Meanwhile, across town, I received text updates from a mutual acquaintance who had driven past the rooftop venue. My family's party was a legendary disaster. Because it was New Year's Eve, it was physically impossible to find replacement caterers or rental companies on 3 hours' notice. When their guests arrived, including Sybil's boss, they walked into a freezing, completely empty room. There were no tables. There was no music. My parents had desperately ordered 2 dozen cheap pizzas, which arrived cold. They had to serve warm supermarket wine in plastic cups. Guests left within 20 minutes. Sybil locked herself in the venue's bathroom, refusing to face her boss. Thaddeus ended up in a screaming match with the building manager over the deposit, which had already been refunded directly to my corporate card. As the clock struck midnight, Cashin pulled me close on the dance floor of the charity gala. We kissed under the falling confetti, surrounded by a community of strong, resilient people. At that exact same moment, miles away in the suburbs, 2 marked police cruisers quietly pulled into the driveway of Silas Landscaping and Design. Evander had not wasted any time. The federal wire fraud complaint was active. The new year had officially begun, and Uncle Silas was starting it in handcuffs. The first week of January brought a devastating, rapid collapse for the Richardson family. Uncle Silas's arrest was the catalyst. When the police raided his office and confiscated his business computers, they uncovered something Evander had suspected, but we hadn't proven yet. Silas had not just stolen my identity. He had stolen the social security numbers of 2 of his own low-wage employees, using their credit to open fraudulent supply accounts. When the news broke, Silas was denied bail. His landscaping business was immediately shut down by the state. His equipment was seized by creditors. The man who had sat at my table and laughed about tricking me was now wearing an orange jumpsuit, facing multiple felony counts that carried serious prison time. The social fallout for my parents was equally swift and merciless. Isolde published her investigative article in the City magazine on January 5th. The headline read, "The Cost of Blood, When Family Becomes a Financial Predator." The article laid out the entire story, using the redacted documents and the viral video of Aunt Rowena's disastrous livestream. My parents, Thaddeus and Coraline, had spent their entire lives cultivating a fake image of wealth and respectability in their quiet suburban neighborhood. They were active members of a local country club and the Neighborhood Homeowners Association. They thrived on looking superior to everyone else. The article shattered that illusion permanently. Friends they had known for decades suddenly stopped returning their calls. Thaddeus was quietly asked to resign from the Homeowners Association board, citing concerns over ethical financial practices. When Coraline went to her weekly bridge club, she found the doors locked, and the host sent her a text saying she was no longer welcome in their homes. They were entirely isolated, treated like toxic pariahs by the very society they had tried so hard to impress. But the most satisfying consequence fell squarely on the golden child. Sybil's boss, the director of the community center, was a well-connected woman in the nonprofit sector. As it turned out, she had attended the Downtown Women's Shelter Charity Gala on New Year's Eve. She had eaten the food I donated. She had seen me honored by the event coordinator. When Sybil showed up for work on January 3rd, expecting to smooth over the disastrous pizza party, she was immediately called into the director's office. The director had read Isolde's article. She had seen the screenshots of Sybil mocking me, demanding luxury, and laughing about the stolen $15,000. For a community center that relies heavily on grants, donor trust, and ethical behavior, employing someone actively involved in family financial abuse was a massive liability. Sybil was fired on the spot. She was escorted out of the building carrying her belongings in a small cardboard box. The golden child, who always believed she was destined for greatness without having to work for it, was now unemployed and entirely unemployable in her chosen field. Desperation makes toxic people do incredibly predictable things. By mid-January, Evander's demand letter for the stolen $15,000 had expired. My parents had failed to pay. True to his word, Evander drafted the formal paperwork to refer the embezzlement case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. My parents realized that they could not bully me. They realized they could not outsmart my lawyer. So, they resorted to the oldest, most pathetic trick in the abuser's playbook: weaponized guilt. On a Tuesday afternoon, I received a frantic, breathless call from Aunt Rowena from a hospital landline. "Maeve, you have to come to Chicago General right now." Rowena cried, her voice echoing with dramatic panic. "Your mother collapsed. Her heart gave out. The doctors say the stress of your cruel lawsuit is literally killing her. You have to drop the charges, Maeve. She is dying." 2 months ago, I would have dropped everything, burst into tears, and rushed to the hospital with my checkbook open. This time, I calmly took a sip of my sparkling water. "I will be there in 30 minutes, I said. I did not call Cashin. I called Evander. When I arrived at the emergency room waiting area, Rowena, Thaddeus, and Sybil were huddled together, looking distraught. When Thaddeus saw me, he rushed forward, tears in his eyes, reaching out to hug me. "Maeve, thank God you are here. We need to end this fighting. Your mother is so weak. Please, just tell your lawyer to stop. We are a family." I stepped back, refusing the hug. Evander walked through the sliding doors right behind me, carrying his signature leather briefcase, looking sharp and lethal in a custom suit. Thaddeus froze, his fake tears instantly vanishing, replaced by a look of sheer panic. Why is he here? Evander ignored him. He walked straight to the reception desk, presented his legal credentials, and my medical power of attorney, which I had never formally revoked. 10 minutes later, Evander walked back to us holding a thin manila folder. He opened the folder and looked directly at Thaddeus. Your wife did not have a heart attack, Mr. Richardson. According to the attending physician, Coraline suffered a severe bout of acid reflux, likely caused by a combination of high stress and a very poor diet. Specifically, the doctor noted she admitted to eating an entire large pepperoni pizza last night at midnight. Sybil gasped. Rowena turned bright red. Evander snapped the folder shut, the sound echoing sharply in the quiet waiting room. Faking a major medical emergency to coerce a plaintiff into dropping civil and criminal charges is a highly documented form of witness tampering and extortion. I have asked the hospital to note this interaction in her file. I looked at my family. Truly looked at them. They looked small, pathetic, and utterly broken. There was no grand realization on their faces. There was no remorse. Just the bitter, angry realization that they had finally lost control of their favorite victim. The charges stay, I said softly, but my voice carried absolute finality. The lawsuit stays. If you contact me again, Evander files for a permanent restraining order. Goodbye, Thaddeus. I turned around and walked out of the hospital, stepping into the crisp, cold winter air. Evander walked beside me. I did not look back. Not even once. That weekend, the charity organization I had donated to held a small, private thank you dinner for their major sponsors. Cashin and I attended. The venue was intimate, lit by hundreds of candles, with soft jazz playing in the background. After dinner, Cashin asked me to step out onto the balcony overlooking the Chicago River. The city lights reflected off the dark water. He turned to me, his dark eyes filled with a kind of love and respect I had never experienced in my childhood home. Maeve, watching you stand up to the people who tried to break you has been the greatest privilege of my life. You are the strongest, most brilliant woman I know. You built an empire, and you refuse to let anyone tear it down. He reached into his jacket pocket, knelt on one knee on the cold stone floor, and opened a small velvet box. Inside was a stunning, elegant diamond ring. I cannot promise you a perfect life, Cashin said, his voice thick with emotion. But I can promise you a family that will never view you as a transaction. A family that will celebrate every single one of your victories. Will you marry me? Tears, happy, healing tears, spilled down my cheeks. I pulled him up by his lapels and kissed him. Yes, yes, 1,000 times. I had lost my blood relatives, but standing there with Cashin, I realized I had finally found my true family. 6 months have passed since that disastrous New Year's Eve. The dust has finally settled, and the landscape of my life looks entirely different. Uncle Silas officially declared total bankruptcy in March. Because he cooperated with the federal investigators regarding the other stolen identities, he managed to avoid a lengthy prison sentence, but he was placed on 5 years of strict federal probation. He lost his business, his truck, and his reputation. He is currently working as a minimum-wage cashier at a hardware store on the outskirts of the city. He is court-ordered to pay restitution for the money he stole, meaning a portion of his meager paycheck is automatically garnished and sent directly to my accounts every single month. My parents, Thaddeus and Coraline, face the full wrath of Evander's legal strategy. To avoid facing felony embezzlement charges and potential jail time for stealing my medical funds, they were forced to sign a binding legal settlement. They had to repay the entire $15,000, plus Evander's exorbitant legal fees. Because they had no actual savings, they were forced to put their beloved, oversized suburban house on the market. They sold it at a loss, desperately needing the cash. They moved into a tiny, cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a much less desirable neighborhood. The country club canceled their membership. Their friends never called back. They are living out their retirement in isolated, bitter silence. Sybil moved into that cramped apartment with them. Without her job at the community center, and with her reputation thoroughly ruined by the viral article, she could not afford rent anywhere else. She spends her days arguing with Coraline in their tiny living room, blaming our parents for ruining her life, while still refusing to take any accountability for her own actions. As for me, I am thriving. Without the massive, heavy anchor of my family's financial and emotional abuse dragging me down, my career skyrocketed. In April, the CEO of my corporation called me into his office. He had seen the way I handled the crisis, the way I managed my vendors, and the public goodwill I generated with the charity donation. He offered me a promotion to National Director of Operations, moving me from the regional office to the executive board. My salary increased by another 40%. Cashin and I bought a beautiful, historic townhouse in the city. We are planning a small, intimate wedding for next spring. There will be no toxic relatives. There will be no forced seating charts. Just our closest friends, our colleagues, and the people who have actively proven that they love and respect us. When I look back at the 32 years I spent trying to buy my family's love, I do not feel regret. I feel a profound sense of clarity. For so long, I believed the lie that society tells us, that blood is thicker than water, that family is everything, and that you must endlessly forgive the people who share your DNA, no matter how terribly they treat you. But I learned the hard way that true success is not measured by how much money you make. It is measured by having the courage and the strength to cut the ropes that bind you to the people who are actively trying to drown you. Tolerance of toxic behavior is not a virtue. Forgiving people who are actively exploiting you is not kindness, it is self-sabotage. I stopped setting myself on fire just to keep my abusers warm. I took back my financial power, my dignity, and my future. Many distant relatives and internet strangers have called me cold-blooded for what I did. They say that sending lawyers after my own parents and pushing my uncle into bankruptcy was a ruthless, heartless move. They argue that family deserves endless second chances. But I firmly believe that showing endless mercy to toxic, abusive people is the cruelest thing you can possibly do to yourself. You teach people exactly how to treat you. By walking away and forcing them to face the severe legal and social consequences of their own actions, I finally protected the one person my family never cared about, myself. So, I turn to you, the audience. I want to hear your honest verdict on how this ended. Many people say I went way too far by pressing the legal charges against my parents when Coraline was supposedly in the hospital. They say I should have dropped the lawsuit and shown compassion in that emergency room. Do you think I was too ruthless? If you were standing in my shoes, looking at the parents who stole your future to fund your sister's delusions, would you have forgiven them when they cried and begged in the hospital waiting room? Or would you have walked away exactly like I did? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I read every single one, and your perspectives mean the world to me. If this story resonated with you, if you have ever had to fight to establish boundaries, or if you simply enjoy hearing about toxic people finally getting exactly what they deserve, please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story about finding strength, fighting back, and reclaiming your life from the people who try to break you. Thank you so much for listening. Stay strong and always remember your worth.